everyone. My name is Kate McCall, and I will be presenting on psychoanalysis for discussion number 7. Known as the father of psychoanalysis, Sigmund Freud was an Austrian neurologist. He championed the idea that our adult behavior is driven by repressed childhood experiences of love, loss, sexuality, and death. Thus, we are all products of what we experienced in our early development. These experiences shape who we are and who we will become in all that we do throughout life. Psychoanalysis and how it pertains to art lies in the fact that visual art is all about communication. The way in which the artist communicates can be broken down as their motivation behind creation of the work. Psychoanalysis would argue that much of what we create as artists is unconsciously motivated by what Freud termed the id. The id is known as the primitive and instinctual part of the brain. As infants, we are born functioning with only the id, and it is not until later in life that we develop the other two parts of our minds, the ego, or the reality of our mind, and the superego, which is also called our moral conscience. Because the id functions in our subconscious, the id often manifests itself without our intention. Thus, when we psychoanalyze a work of art, we are analyzing it by interpreting what we see as potentially the artist's id showing up and interacting with the ego, or the reasonable and decision-making part of the mind. Most often, psychoanalysis requires an understanding of the biographical life of an artist. This involves tracing an artist's life back to a pivotal moment in their early life. In the case of René Magritte, psychoanalytically, we can look to Magritte's early experience of the loss of his mother to suicide. Tragically, when Magritte was 13 years old, his mother, who had long been suicidal, completed suicide by drowning herself in the river Sambre. To add to the effect this event had on Magritte, he was apparently present when they recovered her body from the river. Though this story is now somewhat disputed, the story goes that his mother's nightgown was thrown over her head, exposing her body. Now knowing about this pivotal moment in Magritte's early life, I would like to look at a work by René Magritte called The Collective Invention. This surrealist work appears to be a sort of reverse mermaid. However, knowledge of Magritte's tragic loss of his mother and his witnessing of the recovery of her body, as well as the many known works done by Magritte that portray people's faces covered in cloth, point psychoanalytically to the artist invoking this event in his artwork. According to Ellen Spitz, author of Art and Psyche, we can read further into this artwork. She states that the collective invention, which turns a woman into a fish from the waist up, Magritte alludes to his mother's drowned body in a way that both eroticizes her, the reversed mermaid's lower half is naked and exposed, and mocks her by jumping into the river as she has become no better than a fish. Ellen Spitz goes on to state that Magritte creates images that possess the power to make us want not to look. He actually forces us at times to turn away, but then immediately turn back again in horrified fascination, as he once did. She states that no purely intellectual, cognitive explanation can satisfactorily explain such a phenomenon. The psychoanalytic mode, on the other hand, is a means of understanding something about how such evocative images come about. Herein lies the strength and validity of psychoanalysis as a method. So then, what can't psychoanalysis explain? I think the biggest limitation that psychoanalysis has is that it hinges a whole lot on a single occurrence in someone's biographical life. As I stated before, there is some dispute as to the validity of René Magritte's experience in his mother's death. So, how do we know what really happened and what may not have happened at all? Thus, psychoanalysis depends highly on research and documentary evidence. There is also a problem that comes from the psychoanalytical analysts themselves. And how are we sure to bring our to bring our own experiences out of the reading of the work of art? How much are we projecting our own emotions and experiences onto that of the artist who created the work of art? These are my works cited for this discussion.